Adam Waston, Public Works Director for the City of Bloomington. It is December 3rd, 2024, 5:29 p.m. here in City Council Chambers, 401 North Morton Street in Bloomington, Indiana. On tonight's Board of Public Works agenda, there is a Zoom link and meeting ID and passcode for anyone that's needing to attend virtually. Looks like we just have a few, maybe one person or so on the Zoom meeting from the public. So if you are on the Zoom meeting and you need to offer a public comment, or you can use the raise hand function or the chat function and let us know, and we will get you unmuted. And otherwise, it is going on 5:30 p.m., and we will start the regular session of the Board of Public Works, and I'll turn it over to Board President Kyla Cox-Deckard.
Thank you. I call to order this regular meeting of the Board of Public Works this Tuesday, December 3rd of 2024. First up, messages from board members. Do we have any messages from the board?
I have a question. There appears to be a staff report in the packet that isn't reflected in the agenda. So this is page 213, fire stations 2, 4, and 5 renovations, contract for Strausser Construction. It looks like it should be between agenda items 5 and 6.
The contract was not ready, and we're moving that agenda item to the 17th. I will get it taken out of the packet and re-uploaded.
Perfect. Thank you, James.
Thanks. Any other board comments? All right. Next is petitions and remonstrances. If anyone would like to make a public comment about something that is not on the agenda this evening, now is the opportunity to do so. If you are online, you can use the raised hand function or the chat function to let us know that you'd like to speak. And if you're here in person, you are welcome to approach the microphone. All right, seeing none. Next is the consent agenda. Under the consent agenda is approval of minutes for November 4th of 2024. Resolution 2024-078, renewal of mobile vendor Peely's Taco Truck number 1. Resolution 2024-079, renewal of mobile vendor Peely's Taco Truck number 2. Approve Pete Ellis Lane closure for Peterson Construction. Approve encroachment agreement for 431 West Maker Way, The Forge. Approve permit extension for Olympus Properties at 107 North Dunn Street, and approval of payroll. Do we have any items that need to be removed from the consent agenda this evening? Do we have any public comments on anything within the consent agenda? All right, seeing none. Is there a motion on the consent agenda?
I move that we approve the consent agenda for tonight's meeting of December 3rd, 2024.
Second.
All right, I will call the roll. Carone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard? Aye. Motion passes. Next is new business. First under new business is approved contract for CATS 2025.
First, shout out to our friends from CATS in the back. We always appreciate their coverage of all of our public meetings. So thank you to all of their staff that make all these public meetings accessible to the public. It's a really great service that they provide and assist us with. So this is our annual agreement between the ITS department and CATS. And this is for a not-to-exceed amount of $469,619, which is a 1% increase over the 2024 amount. And this gets paid through the ITS 53980 Community Access TV radio line. Happy to answer any questions, but we request your approval.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item? Okay. Any public comments on this item? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract for CATS for 2025.
Second.
All right, I will call the roll. Carone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard? Aye. Motion passes. Next up is approved preliminary engineering contract with Kimley Horn for Kirkwood Avenue Improvements Project.
Good evening, Neil Copper with the engineering department. This contract is actually Three projects that are kind of being combined into one. First is a traffic signal replacement at Kirkwood and Rogers. This is among the city's signals that are most in need of replacement. The second piece is a named project in one of the 2022 general obligation bonds for curb ramp and crosswalk improvements on Kirkwood Avenue, roughly between Adams and Rogers. And then the third piece is asphalt resurfacing, street resurfacing of West Kirkwood in those same limits that the Public Works Department was interested in pursuing. We're combining them all together because it makes sense to do it all at once instead of separately and tearing up other work. This is the contract to do the design for that work. We selected Kimley Horn to perform those services. The contract is set at a not-to-exceed amount of $238,740. Staff has reviewed and supports the contract, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Questions from the board?
Question about the curb ramps. The drawings look like it's going to include some bump outs, narrow the travel lanes. Is that correct?
That is at least potentially, yes. That's how we've sketched it up in scope in the parking areas on the north side of the street.
Great. Yeah, I remember, I'll put my old man hat on, but back in 2002, the plan for West Kirkwood, lots of neighborhood involvements, lots of thinking about the future. That plan included those very elements, and for one reason or another, which we won't get into right now, they were never put in. So it's nice to see that finally come to fruition.
Great.
Any other questions from the board? All right. Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
All right. Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the preliminary engineering contract with Kimley Horn for Kirkwood Avenue Improvements Project.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next is approved preliminary engineering contract with Kimley Horn for Grimes at Walnut Signal Replacement Project.
Neil Copper again. So this is the other traffic signal replacement we were looking at for the year. This is a smaller, simpler project. We originally we reached out to the same engineering firm to do both signal designs for the efficiencies there and kind of learning our preferences. We ended up, of course, splitting off the Kirkwood-Rogers signal into the project we just talked about. So this is a kind of a standalone signal replacement just at Grimes and Walnut. It would still include some geometric modifications, curb ramp improvements at the intersection, but it's much smaller in scope. The total contract is set at a not-to-exceed amount of $105,550. Again, staff has reviewed and supports the contract, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
I'm just wondering if you can explain in layperson terms what intersection geometry is?
Yeah, so intersection geometry, what I mean by that is just how the lanes align across the intersection, what the curbs look like, what the corner radii look like. So as we're touching curb ramps and curbs anyway, we're going to look at, is there something we can do to, for example, improve pedestrian safety? Can we reduce any corner radii so that turning vehicles are going slower across the path of the crosswalk? Can we align lanes across the intersection better so that you're not pointed into the wrong lane? Things like that.
Excellent, thank you.
Yeah.
Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the preliminary engineering contract with Kimley Horn for Grimes at Walnut Signal Replacement Project.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next up is approved fire training center contract with CMC.
J.D. Borf, Public Works. The first contract is with Weddle Brothers. It's a construction management contract for the Fire Department Logistics Center that they're wanting to build. It's a CME or construction management at-risk type of contract. Weddle Brothers is given a budget of $6.5 million. Their fees will be 2.75% of whatever the construction costs are. So if the construction costs are $5 million instead of $6.5 million, it'd be 2.75% of that figure. The big difference between this type of contract and a standard design build type contract is that Weddle Brothers can actually bid on the labor or construction portions of the contracts up to 20% of the project value. Allows them to actually, before a construction management company would not be allowed to bid on work that they were managing. So, and Weddle Brothers was the selected vendor out of the RFP process for this. And Chris Cioli from Weddle Brothers is here this evening if you have any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item? Any public comments on this item?
Yep, please.
Yeah.
Chris Seolis, Weddle. One thing I want to clarify is the $6.5 million budget was provided as part of the bidding criteria for this project. What's important to note is within that is the design fee, which is not part of the CMC contract, engineering, purchase of land, anything that would be considered soft costs. So I'm gonna emphasize that the cost of construction is not intended to be $6.5 million. That's all-inclusive total project, so anything that's associated with the job is in that budget. So the fee that Weddle Brothers will receive is based off of actual cost of construction. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments, public comments? All right, seeing none, is there a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the fire training center contract with CMC.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Crone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next is approved contract with Electric Plus for the installation of the generator at Animal Care and Control.
Yes, actually, the next two items have kind of the same background. It's decided that we wanted to install a generator at Animal Care and Control. It's been an issue during storms when the power goes out there. It's like, they have to keep their operations running. So we decided to install a contract. The contract for installation with Electric Plus is just for the installation of the generator. And the generator itself will be a separate purchase directly from Cummins through a purchasing cooperative called Sourcewell that we're a member of. So.
Questions from the board on this item? Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract with Electric Plus for the installation of the generator at Animal Care and Control.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Crone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next is approved service agreement with True North Construction.
Yes, this is a service agreement for True North to do some very specific maintenance at the police facility located at the training center south of town. It wasn't competitively bid because the value of the contract's only $3,000. It didn't meet the $5,000 threshold. Though there will be a slew of new service agreements coming to you in the first of the year. We'll try to have one big package of those, and they will be competitively bid, but this was for a very specific project for less than $5,000.
And did you say this is specifically for the police station?
Yeah, it's for the police training center, some repairs to the metal on the building down there.
South Walnut.
Yeah. Next to the utilities property where the burn tower and the firing range is at.
Any questions on this item from the board? Any public comments on this item? All Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the service agreement with True North Construction.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Crone.
Aye.
Roach.
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Next, we have approved contract for renovations to City Hall parking lot with Smith Design Systems.
Yeah, as part of our improvements, capital improvements next year, we want to do a total resurfacing of the City Hall parking lot. And as part of that, we might want to redo the handicap ramps, curb ramps. So we wanted to bring Smith Design Group in. They're very good at this type of project to make any recommendations and create the construction documents we would need to bid the project out.
Any questions from the board on this item?
Just a quick question. So the design work for this would happen in 2024, but the contract for the construction would be 2025?
Yes, this isn't for the construction, this is just design.
Design, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
All right. Any public comments on this item? Okay. Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract for renovations to the City Hall parking lot with Smith Design Systems.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Crone.
Aye.
Roach.
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Thanks. Next up is approve addendum number 5 to contract with Etica for neighborhood greenways.
Neil Copper again. This is an existing contract for work on our neighborhood greenways. The contract is with Etica Group. The most recent amendment we made to this contract was to switch some scope to allow for survey for the Longview Neighborhood Greenway project. During the public outreach process, we identified a desire for a multi-use path along a portion of Longview and also some short sidewalk connections. So we were able to switch some funds within the contract to cover the survey costs for that. At the time, we did not make a shift to cover actually the design costs for that. It was definitely an increase in scope for the design effort. Typically, these are the neighborhood greenways are a much lower design effort. So Etica was fortunately willing, in order to keep on schedule, to perform those services at risk. The Longview Greenway, this work has been completed. The project has gone to bid. It's on your agenda later. But this, in discussions with Etica, they were able to provide their actual hours performed on that task instead of just providing an estimate. And again, we're willing to work at risk in order to keep the project on schedule. So we have reviewed all of that. We support this contract amendment. It's clear they actually did spend these hours on it, and it was an increase in scope. So staff supports the contract increase of $19,435 to a new total amount of $393,253.60. And I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
You answered my one question about the difference between the design contract and the construction contract, so thank you.
And so did this mean we have a new section of multi-use path, basically, where there was not one?
Correct. So there will be new multi-use path from Pete Ellis to Kingston on the north side of Longview, where currently there is not.
Great. Any public comments on this item? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve addendum number 5 to the contract with Etica for neighborhood greenways.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Crone.
Aye.
Roach.
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Thanks. Next is approve North Monroe sidewalk closure.
Hi, Kyle Ball, Engineering. Building Associates, Inc. is requesting a pedestrian diversion. Actually, it morphed into on the east side of North Monroe at the corner of Monroe and 14th for the construction of sidewalk and commercial drive cut and reconstruction and new construction on 14th, reconstruction on Monroe. They're requesting to perform the work sometime between December 5th and July 6th. But this diversion would not be in that place the entire duration of that request. That's just the general time frame. So we'll work with them to make sure that they're giving everybody notice that they need to give to. They've already noted that if they haven't already notified, they will notify CBU, BPD, Monroe County, MCCSC rather, all the stakeholders adjacent to the property as well. Yeah, so at this time, we recommend approval.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item?
I have a couple questions. So what is actually being built there at that corner?
So it is for it's for the Bloomington Housing Authority Child Care Center.
Okay,
Sorry, important detail that I omitted.
great, thank you.
And the diversion is simply using the sidewalk on the other side of the street?
So the diversion will actually be on Monroe. So we did a similar one for Community Kitchen Express on Monroe and 11th earlier this year.
Water-filled Jersey barriers
Yes.
to create the
Okay,
walkway.
Yeah, so they'll occupy that portion of the street. We'll make sure it facilitates all the normal turning movements at that intersection. It worked out pretty well in the case at 11th and Monroe.
so does that, my geographic orientation is not quite with me here, but so that means, I'm just looking at the picture because it's got the arrows indicating cross here.
Yes. Sorry.
But there's also a diversion.
Yeah, that portion was before they made the switch to the pedestrian diversion. Sorry, I see what you're looking at now. Yeah, so they have a design within, or a drawing within their designs now that incorporates a full pedestrian diversion that would have folks at Oris, being funneled into this diversion where they're segregated with Jersey barriers.
Okay.
To continue through that north section.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, that helps. Any other questions on this item? Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the North Monroe sidewalk closure.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard? Aye. Motion passes. Next, approve permit extensions for 4 previously permitted areas for True Line Infrastructure Solutions.
Kyle Ball Engineering again. So True Line Infrastructure Solutions, much easier to say previously, is requesting extensions for these 4 permits listed with the primary streets of Allen, Jacob, Hickory Stick, and Hunter. I think in the last session, we talked a bit about how we're managing the project permit-wise and limiting 12 permits active at any given time, which if there's some kind of resource constraint, whether it be personnel or equipment, whatever it might be, they can bounce around from the couple of different projects they have. With the completion of a couple of others and moving a couple of other that they had to hold status to do later on in the year, this would bring them to 12 active permits as we've instructed them to do. Everything that we're looking at is either in process, up to date, as far as NOVs or anything like that. We're having daily meetings to discuss any issues, so we're having those touch points continually. Any critiquing of MOTs, they're handling in a quick fashion. So we feel better about the situation overall.
All right, questions from the board on this item? Any public comments on this item? All right, seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the permit extensions for 4 previously permitted areas for True Line Infrastructure Solutions.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard? Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thanks. Next, approve West Country Club Drive sidewalk and lane closure for Blackwell Contractors.
Dashiell Sherman Popliers with engineering. Blackwell Contractors is requesting 5 days of sidewalk and lane closures adjacent to 371 and 361 West Country Club Drive. That's to install water lines to the two properties. They're requesting to begin the 9th of December of this year and end the 13th of December of this year. And if there are any cuts overnight, they'll be plated, and they have supplied maintenance of traffic plans for the closure.
And so basically, this will be handled with flagging. Like the traffic will continue to move through, it's going to be flagged to the one lane.
Yes, and I believe they'll be intermittent, so not full 5 days of closure, but throughout those 5 days.
And because we're so weather dependent this time of year, if they're not able to work during the full 5-day stretch, is staff able to extend this, or would this come back to us for extension?
It'd likely come back for extension.
It being arterial, we would come back to you.
Okay. Thank you.
At least we'd give you a staff report update.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other questions from the board? Any public comments on this item? Just a quick question. This might be, my packet's I'm a little here and there on my packet. What are the hours of this?
It should be normal working hours, but I'm going to confirm that, and if not, we can write in
Okay.
a special provision. I know that's a busy road.
Yeah.
Early morning and evening.
Okay, thanks. Do we have a motion on this item?
I move that we approve the West Country Club Drive sidewalk and lane closure for Blackwell contractors.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. All right. Next up, we have approved contract for Longview Greenway with Kreider and Kreider.
Good evening, Jason Kerr with Engineering. This project, again, the Longview Greenway project. This project shall include, but is not limited to, installation of asphalt speed cushions and speed humps, concrete curbs, new curb ramps, pavement markings, signs, and such. The project runs along Longview from Pete Ellis to Morningside Drive. As it was earlier mentioned, it goes from Pete Ellis to Kingston is a new multi-path, and then from there through Glenwood, I believe, over to Morningside, it gets the speed cushions and speed humps for the Greenway. Engineering is recommending that BPW award the project to Kreider and Kreider. They are the lowest responsive and responsible bidder, and the bid from Kreider and Kreider on this project is the amount of $549,433.45.
Questions from the board on this item? Any public comments on this item? Seeing none, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract for the Longview Greenway with Kreider and Kreider.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox-Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Thanks. Next is approved contract for Thornton, Arden, Washington, and traffic calming with E&B paving.
Jason Kerr again from Engineering. This project is install traffic calming along Thornton, Arden Greenway, and South Washington Street. It's kind of two contracts. We merged them together due to similarities in them. Project shall include, but is again not limited to, installation of asphalt speed cushions and speed humps. There are some concrete curbs and new curb ramps going in, and new signage and pavement markings. Project runs in Thornton along Arden to High Street, and then Washington from First to Grimes. Engineering recommends that BPW award this project to E&B Paving. They were the lowest responsive and responsible bidder. The bid from E&B Paving is in the amount of $308,925.
Thank you. Questions from the board on this item? Any public comments on this item?
None on Zoom.
All right, is there a motion?
I move that we approve the contract for Thornton, Arden, and Washington and traffic calming with E&B paving.
Second?
All right, I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. Thanks. Next up is staff reports and other business.
Good evening, Adam Wason, Public Works Director. Just give folks an update. We had a little bit of winter weather yesterday during the rush hour. Real light dusting of snow makes it real difficult for travel conditions, but had crews go full bore last night, making sure that they were getting everything salted. And obviously, we always start with the bridges, overpass hills, things like that. We're also possibly expecting some overnight freezing rain very early into the morning hours, so we're going to be monitoring that, and we'll be coordinating with all of our public safety agencies, school corporation, and others on that, and as needed, bring in all the crews to treat roads. Did get some pre-treatment down today, which was good with the brine machine, but we'll be monitoring that weather. Otherwise, we're headed into that winter weather holiday season. We've got some free parking coming up during the holiday season later in December, starting on the 19th. So just wanted to remind folks of that, and had a really good, successful canopy of lights the other night. So overall, really great. Otherwise, we've got the, with the downtown projects, just an update for the general public. We've got one small section of 4th Street between Madison and southbound College that still needs some pavement, and hoping to get to that yet here maybe later this week, early next week, depending on some temperatures. But that'll wrap up that construction project. They'll have some dirt work and some striping and things to come back and do in the spring when temperatures allow. But really proud of those projects and the effort. I want to thank both our partners, Milestone and the engineering department, for their work on the downtown project, and want to thank E&B Paving and the engineering department for the partnership on the West 3rd Street project as well. That one's got a couple intersections that need some crosswalks yet, but need 50-degree temperatures for that, and I don't see that coming in the next day or two. So, but yeah, just, you know, big projects. We understand they had impacts, but for anyone that's driven them of late, they turned out really great and are nice investment into the community. So just wanted to get an update there. That's all I have for this evening.
Thanks. Next up is approval of claims. Are there any questions from the board on claims? All right, is there a motion to approve the claims?
I move that we approve claims tonight in the amount of $1,613,602.77.
Second?
All right, we have a motion and a second. Just checking to make sure there's no public comments on Zoom, because it appears we don't have any public here.
None on Zoom.
All right. We have a motion and a second, so I will call the roll. Corone?
Aye.
Roach?
Aye.
Cox Deckard, aye. Motion passes. And seeing we have nothing else on the agenda, I will call for adjournment.